All right, so I'm very suspicious of religious texts. And the reason why I'm suspicious is because I'm starting to notice that there is a lot of signal, but also a lot of anti-signal that's happening. And that is both good and bad. The reason why it's good is for those who can see and those who can hear, that provides training material. You get the signal and you get the anti-signal, and in the process of sorting out between one and the other, the consciousness gets trained. That's why Jesus says he's after those who can see and those who can hear. But not everybody can see and not everybody can hear. Some are going to execute simply what's written down in the book. So I like to think about this subject in a very modern sense of technology, right? Your body is the hardware. So you have the machine that executes all kinds of processes. But the most fundamental architecture that allows the body to know what it should be doing is the firmware. And I have a feeling, my suspicion is that these religious texts have the ability and even do hijack the firmware to either make the hardware, your body, your mind, behave in ways either it wasn't originally designed to do, or limit its functions and limit its capacity and capability. So it seems like we're in a time where a lot of people are going to start going online. Right now, the connection is kind of dial up. It's very slow, but you're able to receive signal and you're able to send signal. But the faster the connection is going to get, the more obvious it will become who's what. And that's what the Bible talks about as the judgment, or the separation between wheat and chaff. So an example that I like to use is very classic, Jesus' parable, where the master goes out, he has good seed. What is seed? It's like instruction packets. A seed contains instruction. When you execute the instruction, when you plant the seed, it produces results. So master goes out and he sends a bunch of signal. He sends out all of these packets, right? The seed. And for whatever reason, during nighttime, the opposition goes out, the enemy goes out, and the enemy plants anti-signal. He plants not good seed. So both are useful and both play a very important role. Because one gives you the message of that which is supposed to be the original code, the original design, and that's useful. But for training intelligence, for training your mind, your intelligence in training, your consciousness in training, that's why we come here. You can also benefit greatly from anti-signal, from bad signal. And in my life, I'm noticing that I very much benefit from anti-signal. I learn a lot from the opposite of what needs to happen, or sin. Call it fucking sin, right? I learn a lot from doing good, but I learn even more from doing what's not good and screwing up. Okay. So my suspicion is that religious texts contain both. In fact, the enemy would not miss the opportunity to plant his seed and his signal in the spiritual scriptures, because God, as we know it, the central consciousness, the main frame, the main database, does not get involved directly in the material world. God gets involved in material world by sending out a signal, and that signal then manifests through one of its agents. The thing with the enemy also has agents, and those agents are a lot more involved in the material realm. So, who are one of these agents? What's a good example of one of these agents? I suspect that Apostle Paul, call him Paul, is one of these agents, because the message of Jesus is not what the church is built on. The church is built on Paul. Paul is the one that popularized Christianity. The reason why we have Christianity is because Paul took Jesus' message, repackaged it, and made it popular, which is both good and bad. But the process itself is good because it gives you the signal and it gives you anti-signal. What I start coming up against is that I see a lot of Christians, and this is my main criticism of Christianity. A lot of Christians are limited in the way that they are able to utilize their minds. Their minds are hijacked by these scriptures. And the only way to break free is going to be to drop the scriptures. In fact, I believe Jesus says in his teaching that to attain me, to follow me, you're going to have to be willing to give up everything. To become Christ, which is embody the divine architecture, embody the signal, to embody the signal and to be like Christ, you're going to have to give up the scriptures. There's going to be no need for the scriptures other than it's training data. But for you to go online, you need to be able to go beyond the scriptures. Otherwise, if you consider yourself a good Christian and you follow the good book, then you're not online. Because to be online, you have to have a direct connection to the source. And that is the main transformation that is happening right now in the age of Aquarius. Is the hardware is gaining that direct connection with the mainframe. That's why Jesus was water. That was baptism. And Pisces is air. So everyone is going to have their direct spiritual connection to the source. And the scriptures in the Bible, unfortunately, is gonna prevent a lot of people from being able to connect, because it hijacks the hardware and turns off the ability to connect. In fact, it served a certain purpose, but now I see Christianity being the reason why people can't become Christ.